Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today, breaking down Tyrann Mathieu going to the New Orleans Saints. Yes, he's already been there, but we have to circle back and break down what this means. We've got a lot of turnover now for the Saints in their secondary. Tyrann Mathieu in, Marcus May in. They lose Marcus Williams. You got Malcolm Jenkins retiring this offseason. So a lot of turnover on the back end for the Saints, Sam, who have had one of the best pass defenses over the last couple of years. So what does Tyrann Mathieu, and we'll loop in Marcus May here. What do they bring to the Saints?
Yeah, well, you really hit the nail on the head there with the critical retirement of Malcolm Jenkins, because that is a skill set to depart this defense that Tyrann Mathieu can help to patch some up with, right? He is a guy that can be the matchup player on defense, that can move around, that can cover tight ends in the slot, that can line up in the box, that can play free safety. He's the guy that shifts all around that defense and makes the whole thing function. When Malcolm Jenkins left, they didn't really have that skill set at all. Now they've made some signings, they've got some players in that secondary, but none of them really fit that role exactly. That, I think, was what Mathieu has a chance to do, to come in and complement Marcus May and really make an impressive safety duo again, but in particular with that sort of matchup style of play, which Marcus May's shown that he can do a little bit of when he got allowed to step into the Jamal Adams role with the Jets and do a little bit more than he'd been doing. But that's what Mathieu excels at and has, since his college career.
Yeah, versatility is key there. And, there was a point in Mathieu's career where he was playing a little bit more in the slot. He started to play a little bit more free safety at one point. And then all I know is, you mentioned since college. I know since college, Tyrann Mathieu is a playmaker, right? I mean, he makes plays on the ball. He forces fumbles. Just from a PFF WAR standpoint, since 2017, he's ranked in the top 10. He's ranked in the top 11 a couple times, but he's been no worse than 21st as far as most valuable safeties. So that's being on the field, playing well against the run, playing well in coverage. Personally, I think he does his best work as the lurk player in the middle of the field, right, where he has a little bit of freedom to roam. He's very instinctual, knows how to read quarterback's eyes. VHS, as you like to call it, Sam, the vision head start. He knows how to see the play and break on it. So I think the Saints have an opportunity to let him take away the middle of the field, right, and add that skill set to their secondary. I love the fact that they have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson there, who is more of a true slot. But remember, coming out, Gardner-Johnson had some Tyrann Mathieu type of comps because he's got that hybrid skill set as well. So I think there's a lot of versatility back there for the Saints. Even Marcus May, right, coming from the Jets, has played free, has played strong, has done a little bit of everything. So I think they've maintained their versatility that has made them one of the better secondaries in the league in the last few years.
Not just maintained, but I think they've upgraded. I mean, Malcolm Jenkins did well in New Orleans, given where it looked like his career had been heading, but was obviously on the downswing, was reaching the twilight of his career. Tyrann Mathieu is still in his prime, still playing extremely well. I would go so far as to say that I don't think there's been a more versatile safety in the NFL since Mathieu came into the league. If you look at his career in totality, he's played at least 1,500 snaps as a true free safety in the box or in the slot. And he's also got a ton of snaps as lined up split wide as a true cornerback against matchup players, running backs, tight ends, and lurking around the line of scrimmage on the blitz, those kinds of things. He's been literally everywhere. And arguably his best play in the NFL came as like a genuine, true slot cornerback, not a safety moonlighting as a slot to cover tight ends, but like legitimately as a slot corner. So he can step in and do the stuff that Malcolm Jenkins was doing in that defense in terms of matching up with those tight ends and those running backs and being the guy that fits in to the defense and lets everybody else kind of play their conventional position. And I think he can probably do it at a higher level than Jenkins was doing it. So this is a great signing, I think, for New Orleans.
Let's not forget about Marcus Williams moving on, though. That is the big loss in that secondary. One of the best true free safeties. So, if there is a question mark as far as the Saints go, is that going to be a little bit of Mathieu, a little bit of Marcus May? I think, again, it's just they're different types of players, right? So, I think it might add more options for the Saints. You don't really want Marcus Williams playing in the box a whole lot. Again, he's at his best playing too high, playing single high. But I think the Saints, I think you're right. I mean, they may have gotten better when it comes to what Marcus May, Tyrann Mathieu in particular, bring to the table. I don't think they'll miss Malcolm Jenkins as much right now because of the Mathieu signing, as you're saying. So I think they're going to be good. The same Saints team that's been shutting down the Bucs these last couple years. I think they're capable of doing that once again.
Yeah, and I think they're assuming that Marcus May is going to bounce back. He's not coming off a particularly good year. Last season was the lowest PFF grade of his career, but before that, he had a run of PFF grading that looked an awful lot like Williams, right? Just consistent grades around 80, 80 dead, 80 even in 2018, 74.5 in 2019, 82.9 in 2020. That was a pretty good run of 3 straight years of really consistent, excellent grading, good against the run from a free safety position, good in coverage. And then 2021 was a season that just wasn't good in that first year in that new scheme. So I would assume the Saints are going to expect him to bounce back. And if he does, then I think despite losing one of the best safeties in the NFL, they probably upgraded overall.
Don't forget, right now, you can get 25% off any PFF subscription using the promo code NFLPOD. That's right, just from the PFF NFL Daily, from the PFF NFL Podcast, we're giving you the promo code NFLPOD. You get 25% off any PFF subscription right now over at PFF.com. Yeah, just going back to Mathieu and what the Saints defense has right now, Sam, is this enough for them to contend in the NFC South? I think maybe people have been sleeping on the Saints because, look, Drew Brees is gone, second year removed from not having Drew Brees. It's still a good, solid roster. There's been a lot more turnover over these last couple of years because of the cap and the way they've maneuvered it. They haven't maintained all their players, but they still left enough flexibility to go get a Tyrann Mathieu right now. So, solid defensive line, added pieces to the secondary, power moves in the draft to go get Chris Olave and Trevor Penning in the first round. What are your thoughts on the Saints in the NFC South?
I think their defense will be good. And in the NFC, you can contend without being great. I mean, if the Saints were in the AFC West, you would say forget it. They just don't have the firepower to compete with those teams. In the NFC, it's an awful lot more attainable. Now, okay, they're in a division with the Bucs, so that's not a great start, but still, I think their defense will be good. There's enough talent there. It's pretty top heavy, so if they get a run of injuries, they're more trouble. The concern is going to be, can that offense play to the kind of level we've become accustomed to it playing at, as long as Sean Payton was the head coach. And for most of that time, obviously Drew Brees was the quarterback. But even when Drew Brees wasn't there, like you look at his record with guys like Teddy Bridgewater and Jameis Winston and Trevor Siemian, like he was able to get quality play or at least quality results out of pretty much anybody. Now he's not there anymore. So it is Jameis Winston. It's an offensive line that's been creaking the last couple of years, lost their best player in Terron Armstead. Ramczyk is still there. Trevor Penning has to come in and replace Armstead. And that interior needs to get a lot better from where it was last season. And then Chris Olave and Michael Thomas, need to hit the ground running. Olave as a rookie and Thomas getting back from that injury. There's just a lot of question marks all of a sudden about that offense. There's talent there, so you can definitely paint a picture where if everything breaks their way and, Penning hits the ground running as a rookie and blah, blah, then they're a good team. But anytime you have that many question marks, automatically you have to assume that a few of them are going to break against you. And if that happens, it's tough to see the Saints really competing with the best teams.
No, I'm with you on the Saints. The defense does look legit once again, and having Tyrann Mathieu in the secondary is a huge part of it. Playing defense in today's NFL, it's very difficult, but the only goal that you can have every week is, hey, make life difficult on opposing quarterbacks. And outside of a couple games, the Saints really did that. Again, going back to what they've done against the Bucs these last couple of years, they've kind of had their number. If they can do that again, win those regular season games against Tampa Bay, but also keep Jameis Winston healthy, right? He was on pace to have a really good season. I think the Saints have done a nice job this offseason getting the talent back, reshaping the roster, but enough to contend, right? Enough to look to the future, but enough to contend for right now. And the one thing we don't want to overlook, it's a nice little homecoming for Tyrann Mathieu back in Louisiana, played at LSU, and excited to be back home with the Saints. So it's a post-draft move. It's not going to affect the compensatory picks and all that stuff too. Nice job by the Saints. Replenishing in the secondary. Looks like they're going to have one of the best back ends once again this season. It's a PFF NFL Daily.